Poor Marie Antoinette, this is a bad one. Where's the head go?
It's right here. Sergeant.
Oh, thank you. Woo! Poor Marie. All right. Why is this? It's kind of zoomed in. This is kind of weird. Huh. I don't want it zoomed. Okay, did we get to the Bear Flag Republic? Okay, good. Yeah, I did get it up. Friday's up. Yeah, it's up. Huh?
Yeah, I watched the video.
During class?
Yeah, I don't know. I think you're trying to figure out what was happening because it was just like the whiteboard. And then we watched it and then okay.
Doesn't work. All right. So after the Thornton affair, and that's when Zachary Taylor went down to the Rio Grande River, and they were attacked. And the big issue was Polk said it was north of the Rio Grande. What did Polk know? When President Polk did we get to the Declaration of War?
We like this. Yeah.
Okay, I guess I thought it was just a little bit ahead. Because of you. So we didn't get to the spot resolution? Okay, so they were attacked, and what we said was, the United States said that they were north of the Rio Grande River. We get to that. If Polk said, we know for a fact they were north of the Rio Grande River. And that's when Congress declared war. As we know now, he had no idea. He had no idea if it was, they were attacked, but was it south of the river, which was unquestionably Mexico, or was it north, which was that area in conflict? But he said he knew for a fact, and it was unprovoked. So Polk lied. That, by definition, is a lie. And to this day, we're not sure if they're north or south. And Abraham Lincoln would be one of many Free Soil Whigs who would be elected. It's hard to see. I wish I had a better projector, but I don't. That's why. And he, in 1847, would send a letter to Polk, which he'd read on the floor of the United States Congress, which is called the Spot Resolution. And the Spot Resolution is Abraham Lincoln. That's a young picture of Lincoln. That's actually 1850s, and that's a picture of the Thornton affair. He said, show me the spot where American blood was shed. Basically saying to Polk, prove it. Of course, by then, it's already too late where you have declared war and are fighting battles. But he asked, and this would give Lincoln a little bit of fame, but after the war was won, he had no chance for re-election. And that is why at where this happened, which is just therefore where they say it happened, just north of the Rio Grande River, this monument was put up by the state of Texas. And on this it says, the spot where American blood was shed on American soil. And they did this in the 1890s. And it was basically a slap in the face of Abraham Lincoln. It's the we hate Abraham Lincoln. And that's why we put that up. And the South would hate Abraham Lincoln. In fact, there's still a lot of anti-Lincoln feelings out there. No, there was a little plaque here that's kind of a star in the state of Texas. That was and they pulled it out. For some reason, it got pulled out. And it's back on there now, but that's just a picture I have. And so now war is declared. And Zachary Taylor is getting reinforcements. Volunteers from all over, especially the South, joined the United States Army. So many volunteers came from Tennessee, After this war, it became known as the volunteer state. And they began to come right to here. Now, most of the men were untrained, but the United States did have very good officers. West Point, but have you ever heard of like the Citadel or Virginia Military Institute or things such as this? In the South had a military tradition. You got to have a militia for slave rebellions. And so there are good officers, much better than they had in Mexico. In Mexico, the officers were kind of cronies. Some were talented, but most of the men didn't trust. And the plan was Taylor was going to march into Mexico, win one victory, and then Mexico would give up California. They would give up New Mexico for free. So we'll go right to the Battle of Monterey. And that is where at Monterey, these were called lithographs, and they would make these with a printing press and then paint them in, and they became the rage. Nobody could afford art until the Industrial Revolution. Now you get little pictures of these things. And so you have they're great. They're kind of hyper dramatic, and the mountains are always higher where they should be. But during the Civil War, everybody had these pictures of generals and everything else. But at Monterey, the American force defeated and took a Mexican citadel at Monterey. And this, they thought, was the big victory. General Taylor, old rough and ready, was the victor. But Mexico did not quit. Where was Santa Anna while this was going on? Actually, not quite in jail. He was almost arrested, but he escaped. Santa Anna was in Havana. Sorry about that. But he had been exiled. And actually what happened was he was overthrown after the United States annexed Texas, and he escaped, got to Havana. He sent word to the United States, give me money, help me go back. I will take over and give you California, and give you New Mexico. New Mexico and California, give it to you both. Santa Anna, he was making all these promises, and we said, what the heck, let's try. Gave him money and a ship to get back to Mexico. He arrived, triumphantly went up the mountain to Mexico City, pretty much took power without firing a shot, and immediately announced he was going to do what? Defeat the United States and get Texas back. That was a bad move. Santa Anna's confident. They have a shot now with Santa Anna. And the United States had some advantages, but Mexico had clear advantages. They were on the defensive. So, right here is Taylor. And Taylor has some trained troops. Now, they have fought a couple battles. They're right here. But the problem is Taylor is a Whig. And they're terrified that old Rough and Ready will become the next old Tip, like William Adrian Harrison. They'll find that somebody who's like Andrew Jackson, a war hero, and the Whigs will win. Polk's a Democrat. Polk doesn't want to win. Polk said he would only run for one term. So, they wanted to give it to somebody else. In fact, they did something, and this happened a couple times. It happened in the Civil War a number of times. He's here. They took all his best soldiers away and gave it to another general. So we had nothing but raw recruits. Little did the United States know, Santa Anna was marching his best soldiers through the desert to try to win his big victory and knock the United States out. Just at a time when Taylor lost his best soldiers. And in a very confusing battle, the Battle of Buena Vista, this is another one of those lithographs. And I love how dramatic they make the mountains. I guess it's a beautiful place. Buena Vista, what, good view, right? Here's another shot. Yeah.
So it's Buena Vista where Taylor lost his good men and Santa Anna was putting up his best.
Yeah, Santa Anna was coming just to attack right then. And this battle was one that first the Mexicans did quite well, drove them back. Taylor, though, had kept his cool, wearing his red flannel shirt and straw hat. That's what he always wore in battle. And he had some good officers. In fact, one of his best officers just happened to be his son-in-law, a West Point graduate by the name of Jefferson Davis. Davis would go on in 14 years to become what? Oh, no? The president of the Confederacy. So, this picture, okay, they weren't 6 feet apart. They wanted to get both sides in there, and they wanted to get Taylor, right? But what it really shows, though, is what made the difference, the cannon. The Americans had better, they know how to aim them better, they know how to fire them. And have you heard of something called, well, you remember grape shot? Canister. Canister had been developed in Europe and brought over. So think about grape shot, like 8 or 12 cannonballs about that big. Canister, imagine a metal cylinder about that big. I was thinking like a juice can, even though I'm thinking, oh, maybe we buy those anymore. But pack that with 200 to 400 musket balls. Crudely made musket balls. And you fire that out of a cannon, and what does it become? Can you just imagine? A horrific weapon. They used that to great effect. Used that to great effect to stop the Mexican attack. Buena Vista was a huge victory there. Partially because it was so unexpected. After he lost his soldiers, Taylor became a bigger hero than ever. And guess what Taylor is going to become? The next president. Didn't work. Who did he give his soldiers to? Winfield Scott. Scott is arguably one of the greatest generals in American history, a hero of the War of 1812. He too was a Whig. But unlike old Hickory, old Tip, old Rough and Ready, anybody want to guess his nickname? Old Fuss and Feathers.
Mine's always start with old.
Gotta be old. They're not young, they're old. Good old guy, good old chap. These are using chap. But Old Fuss and Feathers. He was, what they call him, marionette. He really cared about, that the uniforms had to be perfect, buttons shined, all that kind of stuff, and they hated him for him. He's so fussy, the Fuss and Feathers. Actually, he was a very good general. Taylor didn't care. So they figured Fuss and Feathers will never capture the popular imagination. Now, he had almost an impossible task. He's got to land here and march up 7,000 feet and take Mexico City. 2 mountain passes. In fact, if Santa Anna would not have gone up here and kept his best soldiers here, it would have been almost impossible for Scott to do this. He didn't have enough men to hold a supply line. So he's going to have to abandon the supply lines and literally go up the mountains. It's all or nothing. It's weird to think about today because we think, okay, the relative power of the United States to Mexico today, because of industrialization and economies of scale, yeah, the U.S., we just think, yeah, of course they're going to win this war. 1847 wasn't so clear. Mexico could have very well won this war. Scott could have been defeated. A bunch of European officers came over, military officers, as observers to watch the fighting and learn about it. They all just thought there's no way Scott and his 10,000 men could win this. And the other big problem was they had to get out of here before summer. Summer waves of mosquitoes come. What disease? Malaria is a bad one, but there's another one. Pre-West Nile. Or they had West Nile, but it wasn't as deadly. Yellow fever was the one that could just wipe them out. There were a series of yellow fever epidemics in here. They had to get off that beach. That's why the capital's at 7,000 feet. That's why the Olmecs and the Aztecs put it up there, because down here, yellow fever. But they attacked, and Scott had some luck. Very good general. They took Veracruz, shelling, and then taking the fortification. There were actually, there were 2 big fights. One right here in the first pass going up, and they were nearly stopped. But a combination of Santa Anna making a couple blunders and luck by Scott, the United States kept advancing to, this is the battle we have to get. Yeah.
So, did they win?
They're about ready to win.
Oh, okay. So, they won Veracruz then?
Yeah, they took Veracruz and then started up the mountain.
Okay.
The Battle of Chapultepec would be the climactic battle of this war. This was an old Aztec fortification or Aztec temple that the Spanish turned into a fort. And if they could take this citadel, the road to Mexico City is open. Mexico City is surrounded by mountains. I don't know if you've ever flown or been on Mexico City or been there. Yeah, It's a pretty spectacular place. It's so high up there. And they had to take this, a 2-day battle that could have went either way. And at this battle, you're going to have all these people who are going to become officers and important, sometimes heroes, sometimes goats in the Civil War. So everybody from Braxton Bragg, Leonidas Polk, George McClellan, George Gordon Meade, who's one of the best Union commanders. Ulysses S. Grant was a lieutenant at this. In fact, one West Point graduate whose father was a Revolutionary War hero, his uncle was the one who put independence up to a vote in the Continental Congress. He crawled around the Citadel. Took him over a day, or I'm sorry, half a day to crawl on his hands and knees in the heat and then the shelling. And you can imagine how hot it was going to be in August, somewhere between 2,000 to 3,000 degrees. And that's including the wind chill. But he made it around, found a weak spot in the Mexican line where they would attack and take the fort. That was Robert E. Lee, who would become the leading general of the Confederate Army. And yeah, Grant and Lee were there. A pretty remarkable battle. And at the end of the day, the Mexicans could not hold Chapultepec. And you're wrong. I did it again. Another great name. Think about it. Think about it. Okay, down the road you said have family, and you have twins. Come here, little Chapultepec. Come here, little Freeling Poison. And the best part about those two names, generational. Doesn't matter if you have 2 girls, 2 boys, boy and the girl. Right? It's perfect. You know, I give and I give. You're writing this down, aren't you? I think about Chapultepec, you can shorten that down to Chapultepec. So, and so once that fell, this is a painting. The painting was titled Scott enters Mexico City. But the point is, Santa Anna could not hold Mexico City. In fact, Polk is overjoyed. When Polk heard about this, he said, let's get the whole thing. Let's take it all. But that was an illusion. Yeah, Scott took the capital. Santa Anna fled, but he barely has enough men and equipment or supplies to hold out. He can't stay long. There's a hostile population. He holds the city, and that's it. And not for long. He likened it to Napoleon in 1812 taking Moscow. Take it, can't stay. So they got to find Santa Anna who's fleeing north, and they have to get, a treaty. And here's Polk saying, take the whole thing, which would have been ridiculous. Santa Anna, if he would have been smart, would have fled quickly, organized a defense, started maybe a little guerrilla action, and just wait him out. That's what Santa Anna should have done. That's what he was going to do, but he couldn't give up his stuff. And so he had a whole wagon train of over 50 wagons of just personal stuff that he had to have. And so all of his fine wine, he had various types of furniture and painting and rugs, wagons had various mistresses, and also wagon after wagon of wooden legs. Yeah, had wagons just of legs. So this long wagon train made it easy to find. American dragoons found in north of Mexico City and captured Santa Anna. And okay, they started looting because that's what they did. They went through all this stuff. Then they found the legs. And what do I mean just like wooden legs? Sure, there are some peg legs. Just your basic peg leg. But that's what he kind of wore because it was too hard to get one. Yeah. It's going to be a place called Guadalupe Hidalgo, but we'll get that to the treaty, so don't worry about it right now. So imagine all these legs. You got wooden peg legs, and they had some legs that were carved out of foot. They didn't work very well because they couldn't. The foot didn't move. You're like a modern leg. The modern artificial legs are amazing. This was just basically just for show. And he had legs for when he was reviewing the cavalry, when he's in the army, when he's in the navy. And then he had all these legs for special occasions. And he had legs that were diamond encrusted, ruby encrusted, gold plated. He had supposedly a solid gold leg, which would have been far too heavy to move, a solid silver leg, all these things. And my 2 favorite legs, he had a leg that was a cannon. What? Now I'm still trying to figure out how you would use that, but you would like load it, and then you would like I guess.
How is that practical? He lost his like two-handed, was all like, oh.
It's like a cruel joke,
Better
isn't it?
put one on there, and he lost the other leg.
Well, I think it'd be hard to misfire. And then also think about it. I mean, you fire and it's the recoil will knock you down. Think how bad that would hurt the stump. The other one, it was a sword. So I guess you took off like the sheath and now you have a sword. But think of the logic of that. Okay, eventually you got to take a step with a sword leg.
You slice up the ankles.
Oh yeah. I think that's not. I think that probably is the biggest of your worries.
Is this like?
Yeah, this is true.
So yeah.
Wait, is there like a museum with all of his legs?
There's a lot of them left, but what happened was there's only a few of them left, but you can imagine what happened. The gold one disappeared.
Yeah.
Like poof, gone. I wonder what happened. And so only a few of them, but there are some left. And then they had all these wooden legs. The guys are running around the line. Oh, we got the legs. Baseball had been invented, slightly different rules, but they're playing baseball with the leg. And eventually, there's these hundreds of just wooden legs. And somebody got them back to Veracruz and got them aboard a ship and got them to the United States. And out of these legs, they carved something that became the have-to-have souvenir of the Mexican-American War. So there'd be millions of them because how would you know if they weren't from his original leg? What could you carve millions of? Well, not millions, but thousands. What?
Toothpick.
Yeah, Santa Ana toothpicks. Really?
Wait, seriously?
Yeah, seriously. Santa Ana toothpicks became the had-to-have souvenir. And so there's one in the Smithsonian Museum of American History, there's a toothpick. Now, don't think of toothpicks today, which are mass-produced, use them once, basically and throw them away. Think of more like a pencil, like about half as thick as a wooden pencil, and you would carve a point, use it, and then carve another point. So a little bit different. And if you go there and ask nicely, they'll let you use the one in Washington, D.C. Maybe you should tell me, you're using toothpick? But Santa Ana's not captured. He delayed, and fortunately for the United States, Nicholas Trist, who he was sent there, ignored him and would sign the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, because that's near where he was captured. Trist ignored what Polk said. Now look at this picture. I like this. Remember I told you about glass negatives? This one broke. So they stuck it together to make it. And like everyone at that time, they're either frowning or look stunned. Go. And I'm just throwing this out there. Next year, when you get your picture taken at the beginning of the year for seniors, look stunned. Everybody try to look stunned for those pictures. You get in trouble with it.
So what was the treaty? Was it just like they go on Mexico?
I'll show you what the treaty. I haven't got to it yet, but that's a treaty. You should just read it.
America gets all of it.
That picture was actually taken during the Civil War. Trist would become another one. A lot of Confederates running around here. Huh? But this is what the treaty did. The Rio Grande is the border. And then the United States also got the Mexican cession. The Mexican cession is California, New Mexico. This is New Mexico. California, we know, same border as today. And the Rio Grande for the southern border. Remember, the United States already had Texas. It's just what the border was. And then we paid for it. Mexico owed U.S. citizens money. Those were the U.S. claims. So we paid those back too. That's where you get the $15 million, and then we paid back. We basically paid Americans debt or Mexican debt to American citizens. And so we paid $50 million is what we paid for Louisiana, but it was $18.3 million in total. The reason we did this is the United States wanted to say we didn't fight this war for conquest. We weren't like some European autocratic state or empire. We were defending our border, and they just happened to buy this. Now, of course, that's garbage. The whole thing was to get this land, and it was all set up to get this land. And $15 or $18.3 million, that was literally a theft. I mean, that was unbelievable. what a deal the United States got. We stole a significant amount of wealth and paid almost nothing for it, just in California alone. But then again, we won. You think about Louisiana being, it's actually more land, but Louisiana not even near the net wealth. This was huge. Wow. In fact, that's why, last little bit, and we'll come back to this. In 1853, the United States would purchase from Mexico the last little bit of the continental United States. I don't know if you can read it, but it's called the Gadsden Purchase. Gadsden. Gadsden Purchase. It's a little piece of blue land right here, mostly of Arizona. And the U.S. paid for that, mostly high desert, $10 million. So think about it. We paid over half for this than California. And that partially was out of guilt. We wanted that land, the United States did, because it was flatter for a railroad, for a transcontinental railroad on a southern route. But now that's kind of the United States. But let's get back to this. Remember the whole thing about slavery? Okay, Texas was decided. What about this huge amount of land? This was being debated from the very beginning of the war. Don't write all this down, just put down the Wilmot Proviso. David Wilmot would add, proviso is another word, today we would say amendment to an appropriations bill. David Wilmot, he was a Free Soil Democrat from Pennsylvania. Then we go ahead and read it, figure out what it is. And yes, he looks stunned too.
Free soil what?
Free Soil Democrat. Free soil, no slavery in the territory. Yeah, you can read this. You're young and survive. I'm sorry. So this is 2 years before the war ended. What does it say?
No slavery, parts that we buy.
Yeah, and that's called the Mexican Cession. So yeah, no slavery in any land we give to Mexico. That means California, New Mexico. No slavery. That was the Wilmot Proviso. No slavery. It doesn't mess with words that might mean we'll have slave codes or no slave codes, either that. No, this is just no slavery. Free Soil Democrat. Here's, okay, not only was the South mad about this, but what really made him scared is this. This passed the House of Representatives. Failed in the Senate. Passed in the House of Representatives. Failed in the Senate. Passed in the House of Representatives. Failed in the Senate. It passed 47 times in the House. Why? Why did it pass in the House? Why?
Because isn't the House majority has more people in it? So then you have to have more people in the Senate.
Exactly. The population was changing so fast. The North was growing so much faster, they had more members of the House. And it's only going to get significantly a bigger gap between them. Only bigger. They're terrified. If we allow this bill, that means we'll have more free soil senators, and eventually, who knows what will happen in the South? We're going to be outvoted. Pretty soon there'll just be a few slave states where all the slaves will live, condemning us to. Once again, now it's not, hey, we just don't want that horrible system of slavery. No, it's you're trying to kill us in the middle of the night. And Wilmot, all you had to say was Wilmot, and you get a fist fight. Wilmot! On the floor of the House and the Senate, in the cloakroom, they start fighting over this. Wilmot, Wilmot, Wilmot. This unknown guy, his name became synonymous with this controversy. Does it work? So, in the election of 1848, nobody wanted to talk about Wilmot. How do we avoid this issue? because both parties needed northern and southern voters. The Whigs, war hero, worked once before. There's old Rough and Ready, Zachary Taylor. He's a Southerner. He's from Louisiana. He's a plantation owner. A Northern Whig by the name of Millard Fillmore would be his running mate. Now, a lot of times I say you don't need to know the running mate. In this class, just for what we need, you need to know his running mate. You need to know Millard Fillmore, which, by the way, that does not bode well for old Rough and Ready. If we say we have to know the running mate, uh-oh, what's going to happen to Rough and Ready? Oh, never make that sound again. I'm sorry. And what was his position on Wilmot? The Battle of Monterey. What was his position on expansion of slavery in the territories, or the tariff? The Battle of Buena Vista. No issues, war. He's a war hero. They never made any firm commitment on anything. Anything. It was all war hero. Just totally avoid every issue. Harrison kind of did it 100%. So nobody knew what his position on Wilmot was. But Whigs would whisper in the North, he's a Whig. He would follow Henry Clay. Yeah.
Wait, so Taylor was the one here?
Yeah. Old Rough and Ready. In the South, he said he's a plantation owner. I'm not looking at that. Plantation. He's one of us. Trust us. So that's what they did. Now, Democrats are going to be bitterly divided. Oh, I should add this. Well, I'll jump there. I'll come back. And you're looking at me like, what? The Democrats, they are bitterly divided too. They nominated Lewis Cass of Michigan, a war hero from the War of 1812, and his plank was popular sovereignty. Go ahead and get this down, I'll explain what it is. Say it again. Lewis Cass. He tried to run for president back in 1844, and before he read anything about popular sovereignty, see this poster? He wanted to look this way. They drew this. Try it. Try that facial expression. Try it. It's hard, it hurts almost. And try to keep that for a while. I always envision this mouth is going to open up, the tongue's going to get a fly. Yeah, so I guess they got a photograph of him and then drew a picture of it. Popular sovereignty, one of those proposals that sounds really good and is the exact opposite. What it is this. We'll let the people of the territories vote on slavery. They'll decide. Doesn't that sound small d democratic? We'll let the people decide whether or not to allow slavery. On the surface, yeah, regardless of the issue of slavery, it's a good compromise. Let's just do that. This is a terrible move. It is one that is going to cause significant more problems, and anybody or everybody who looked at it seriously realized it was a scam. They're saying something politically that is impossible, will not solve the problem, that just sounds good because people want something that sounds good. For a complex answer, let's get something that sounds great. Popular sovereignty was a horrible idea. And the reason why, just think about the Mexican cession. California and New Mexico, there were no slaves then because Mexico banned slavery. Remember that led to the War of Texas independence. So there's no slavery here. So let's say California in 1848, they're now in the Union because of that treaty. And we say popular sovereignty, you decide whether or not you have slaves. And what are they going to vote? What are they going to decide? We're not going to have them. We don't have slaves. We don't want slaves. Well, let's say Texas would have that vote. What would they decide? And so that's already a scam. But think about here. Let's say, okay, we'll let you vote, but down the road 5 years, you will let people move in. Sound good, right? Well, if you let people move in and you say we got to let anybody come in, including people with their slaves, That means we have to have slave codes and laws to protect slavery. What do you think they're going to vote in 5 years? Once you allow people to come in with their slaves. It's pro-slavery. Popular sovereignty is a scam. It sounds like the people are making their choice, but in reality, it's still the federal government, Washington, D.C., Congress, and the president will decide when this vote will happen. When they actually tried it in Kansas in 1854, it erupted in civil war called Bleeding Kansas. And it was a nightmarishly horrible fight with no prisoners. Yes. I think you had your hand up.
No.
It hurts. That's why you should smile. Well, a third party of mostly Democrats called the Free Soil Party. The Free Soil Party, no slavery in the territories, period. And they nominated former President Martin Van Buren. And Southerners always thought Van Buren was pro or anti-slavery, and they were right. There's Van Buren. And so a lot of Democrats in the North would join this party. A few Whigs, but mostly Democrats. These Free Soil Democrats would become the basis of the Republican Party in 1854, along with some Whigs. And so here's Van Buren. Do not write his name down, but this is just John Quincy Adams' son, Charles Adams. And doesn't that picture look like every comic book villain ever? Like he's about, I'm gonna conquer the world. And he is an Adams. The hair was gone when he was like 18. So, the election, this is how it will go. Whigs, Taylor would win a close election. The Free Soil Party took a lot of votes away from the Democrats. And that's why we don't have third parties. I mean, this is a classic example. Van Buren was a New Yorker. If Van Buren would not have been in this race as a Free Soil ticket, the Democrats would have won New York and Lewis Cass would have been president. And who knows how things would be different. But instead, we have Taylor. And here's the thing. Taylor became president. Nobody really knew what he was going to do about the territories. Nobody really knew about his views on Wilmot, especially what person didn't know. Yeah, Taylor didn't really know. They had no idea. Taylor really didn't want to be president, and they said, everyone loves you. You should be president. You'd be great. They're like, okay, I am great. But he didn't know what he wanted to do. So now Taylor's president. But we got plenty of time. It's going to take a long time for a lot of people to move into New Mexico and California. They're not going to divide up. Plenty of time to come up with a solution to avoid civil war, right? Nothing to see here. Move on. What happened at Sutter's Mill in 1848? Gold. Gold at Sutter's Mill in California. 1848. One of the biggest gold discoveries in the world, at least that's what they presented it as. Now, got back to the rest of the United States. Gold! There's gold everywhere. There's gold flowing in every stream. Got wait till winter. But beginning the next year, we have a gold rush. And hundreds of thousands of people went to California. What did they call themselves? What's that? Yeah, that's where the 49ers come from. The 49ers, because of 1849. And here's some placer mining. Here's basically showing how either go overland or around. The best way, if you had money, was go through Nicaragua. So here's an ad to go through Nicaragua. I love this ad because it has, extraordinary inducement. Only 35 days? What a marvelous world we live in now. Actually, that is incredible. But my favorite part, when you get to Nicaragua, how do you get your stuff over? They have 200 jackasses. Here's the deal. Overnight, California has many times more people than necessary to become a state. And they want to come in now. And they want to be a free state. Overnight. All of a sudden, this balance, this tenuous balance that nearly broke apart many times from the Missouri Compromise erupted. In fact, this was literally like somebody exploded an atomic bomb in Washington, D.C. Overnight, what about California? What about Wilmot? Will that be brought back? Will the South leave the Union over this? And we have a president who himself, he doesn't even know. Fun times, huh? And that's why we talk about slavery right here. Because slavery in America, we've mentioned it, we've gone over a few things, but now, this is, I like putting it here because it sets up now, we've got the Industrial Revolution, what this big change was. So, slavery in America and the South. Because so much of the South, to this day, is a legacy of this slave empire created down there. These slave work camps have such impact to this day. This is an abolitionist poster from England. And on the surface, it looks like, wow, we want to free slaves. It implies equality. Am I not a man and a brother? But in reality, it showed many of the dichotomies of, or contradictions of the abolitionist movement. Sure, they wanted to end slavery, but there's a serious element of racism here. Who's he pleading to? Who? Now it's Matt, because he figured the master one more generic. Who? Yeah, white men. Yeah, only white men can bestow freedom on people, and that by its very nature is a very intensely racist idea. So there's a lot of contradiction. You're like, only white men would do it. I bestow you freedom. But I remember I had a history teacher who I really liked, but he said that we gave women equal rights. Well, first off, that didn't quite happen, but I mean, I remember, what was that, 15? I'm thinking, oh. But he is a teacher. I didn't know. No, it was like, no, that's not true. And I knew it. And I remember telling my dad was because he knew the teacher. Howard's a good guy. Move on. A little bit of history. 1619, that's when the first world slave ship arrived in Jamestown. Remember the tobacco plantations? And then we've already talked about Bacon's Rebellion, but remember Bacon's Rebellion was a big issue because to make sure all the indentured servants and former slaves and current slaves are not unified together, that's where we get the slave codes. What was the most important of the slave codes that made slavery permanent? The children of female slaves become slaves. What are those laws called again? Yeah, those fornication laws. So I put that there, but then one thing we'll get to really quick here. I just started right here with the bell rings. And it's called one thing during all the way up to the beginning of the 19th century, we have this transatlantic slave trade bringing millions of slaves to the United States. I'm sorry, to the Americas. Actually, only about 500,000 only. I mean, that's a huge amount. But as maybe as high as 5.5 million Africans were kidnapped and then brought over to the Caribbean, or another about 5 million to Brazil. It was the sugar plantations. And the sugar plantations literally chewed up the slaves, chewed up human beings, spit out carcasses, and demanded more. Those slave labor camps were horrific. And they were horrible in the United States too, but there's a different type of demand for labor, different competition for labor, and as bad as they weren't as horrific. So many of these slaves came over in this area, they call it the African diaspora, and Africa has never recovered from this. And one thing about this, it's a common perception, people said it, your book says it, that I think most of you know that the slaves were mostly taken by Africans and then traded on the shore. People of European descent didn't go into the interior of Africa and capture slaves. Africans did. But they actually, most of them were captured. The majority, we didn't know the percentage, were actually debtors. And there were people who were paying off their debt, much like, remember indentured servitude, where you're a slave for 7 years? That's what most of them were doing as a way to pay off debt. You're a slave when you're an indentured servant, right? Next thing you know, they're on a ship to America. Which in a way, I mean, there's so many different tragedies here, but that makes it even more just kind of ironic tragedy, because they agreed to do it to pay off their debt, not realizing what would happen. Have a great day, everybody. I know it's tough, but be thankful. It's not Thursday, it's only Tuesday. You got 3 full days of this week after day.
See, I think I wear not I right
This is so cool. Can you get one of the lights, please? Joe, you want to get one next?
right there. Where?
This is cool.
Carter? Yeah.
Yeah, someone put Carter's picture up there last year.
Oh, man.
That is so cool.
I'll wait for you. Oh my god,
It's really neat. And stuff like that too. I mean, there's a lot of the big, there's a lot of stuff going around. That's really unique.
Yeah.
That is cool.
For the
See you tomorrow. Yeah, see you tomorrow. For that document. Library.
Yeah.
And you have to write it out. But what you do for this one is you write it, perhaps just make out like a real brainstorm list of a few things going on. And then for audience, put down a sentence or so explain the audience, the purpose.
That's what I thought I was just.
No, but this one, just read it and underline examples of what the purpose is. You know what, Calvin's main points to prove is. And I'm glad you feel better. My sister-in-law has that same kind of thing. So. Of course, the time they have. And it's, yeah, of course, that would be the time we have. That's weird too, because it just happens. And we never lose it.